We've been doing a lot of actions with our integers, haven't we? We've been practicing them, we've been doing a lot of different kinds, and when we have an action between two integers, we gave it a special name, started with an O. Do you remember? An operation. Exactly right. Okay, operations. Now, so far, we've done our practice. Now, you know more than this, but we've done our practice on 3 of them, and they're here on the board. What was the first one? Addition. Yeah, let's just get all of them on there, right? Addition, subtraction, and excellent, well done. They're all long words, aren't they? That's a bit of a pain. But there you go, multiplication. Now, what that leads us to is today's lesson, which is division. Now, it's a really good thing to have multiplication and division together because they're really, multiplication, division, they're really two sides of the same coin. Okay? It's the same idea. No. This coin is older than I am. It's the same idea, but you look at it from 2 different angles, as you'll see a little more. Okay? So that's why division is kind of the natural next step to go to. Okay? It's the natural next step. Now, by the way, just before we move off that, each of the operations has a little symbol that we use for it, don't we? Right? You got your plus sign, you got your minus sign, you got your multiplies, your times sign. Now, draw the division sign, the division symbol with me. I really like the division symbol. Okay? I think the division symbol was designed for people like me. It's very literal, because you can see what's it doing. It's literally taking 2 things and dividing them. It's, separating them out. Wow, I know, right? Okay, so that's mind blown for today. So there you go. There's the division symbol, and that's why it is what it is. You can work out your own what those are. Now, how do we divide integers? Well, first, let's think about dividing counting numbers. Okay, and you've been doing a bit of this already. So, for instance, dividing counting numbers. Now let's do a simple one. In fact, I'm going to go after one very similar to one that's on the board. Okay? Let's do 12 divided by 3. Now, what does it mean? Before we actually write down the answer, the number, okay, what does the operation ask us to do? How would you put it into words? Jasmine?
How many 3s can go into 12?
Yeah, that's perfect. That's a really good one. Let me write it down, actually. Let's all write this down. How many 3s go into 12? I like that. Are there any other ways that we could say the same idea, but in different language? Yeah, Crystal.
Like, how many parts of 12 to go to 3? Like,
how many?
What?
How
Does
many,
it make sense?
That's 3 divided by 4.
I'm going to give you a different word. I'm going to go groups, right? So, see, I'm trying to divide up this, right? And I'm trying to divide it up into groups. Now, how many groups am I going to divide it up into? No?
What do you mean? Is it like 12? 3.
It's 3. It's 3, isn't it? So, how many groups of 3 are in 12? That's another way to say it. Okay. Are there any other ways we could say the same idea but with different language? It's always great having different ways to say the same thing. Yeah. Let me give you one more. Which, if you remember, do you remember we said multiplication, right, was a short form, an abbreviation of addition, right? Now, in exactly the same way, division is kind of an abbreviation of subtraction, okay? So I'm going to get to your word in a second, but let me write down mine. If division and subtraction have this kind of relationship, how would I say it? Here's how I'm going to say it. How many times can I subtract 3 from 12? Can you see that? You see what's going on? So if I'm thinking of division kind of like, well, how many subtractions are there? It's like, well, I go 12, I go 9, I'm taking off 3, then 6, I'm taking off another 3, 3, I've taken off 3 lots, and then 0, I've taken off 4 lots of 3, and that's why, as you all know, the answer is 4. Okay, now, one more way. Was your way different to these? Yeah? Nice and loud.
3 multiplied by what number?
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm really glad we ended on this one. 3 multiplied by what number? Maybe I should put a comment here. 3 multiplied by what number gives 12? Okay, now can you see how these last two, they're really important. This one shows us that division and subtraction have a relationship, right? But this one shows us that division and multiplication have a relationship, right? It's kind of like asking the question but backwards, okay? Now, that's so important. I'm going to take this idea and I'm going to write it in a new way mathematically. But before I do that, I just want to remind you, we gave some names to these guys. Oh, sorry, no. We'll come back to him in a second. I'm going to take this sentence like this, actually. I'll write it nice and big. 12, 3, 4. That's probably a bit too far apart, but anyway, you get the idea. Now, 12 divided by 3 equals 4. We okay with that? That's an alright statement? Okay. But let's go after what Fawad said. He's really onto something, okay? If you're not into the green, right? 12 divided by 3 is 4. I can just as equally say that 12 is equal to 3 times 4.
Mind
Oh, you had 2 moments on the same day. Wow. Now, hold on. Do you see what I did though? You see what I did? So in fact, I'd like you to write that down, right? 12 equals 3 times 4. Okay? Now these are the same statement but looked at from 2 different sides. You see what's going on? Right? Now, like I said, let's remember the names we've got for these. We said that last lesson, when you do a multiplication, the thing you get at the end has a name. Starts with a P, remember? It's the Penelope of 3 and 4 is trying. That would make maths more interesting, but unfortunately, it's called a product like Ali says. One day, if you become like a maths teacher, you're going to teach all of your students. Okay, everyone, this is the Penelope of 3 and 4. Now, what about these 2 numbers? What are they? They have names as well. It starts with an F. Factors, that's right. These 2 are the factors. Okay, now just like we have the words, the names for all the things happening here for multiplication, we're going to have a look at the names for all the stuff over here for division. Okay, now we learnt one of them the other day. We drew up a table. Do you remember that? What was the end result called after you divide? Yep, a quotient. That's a weird word. Okay, now here's something interesting. Something strange happened. Over here, the things you multiply, they're both called factors. That's a factor, that's a factor. Okay? But here, these 2 guys, they get different names. That's confusing, isn't it? The names are very similar. I'll teach you them. This guy on the front, he's called the dividend. Dividend. You might have heard that word in finance and stocks. What dividend did it pay and so on. Okay? Whereas this guy here, the 3, is called a divisor. Right? Now the divisor is what you're breaking it up into groups of, right? So I always found this confusing. I could never tell which one was this, which the easiest way to remember all 3 together, so long as you can remember all the words, is that the words are in alphabetical order. That's convenient, isn't it? Okay. So if you ever have trouble remembering, if they ask you in a question, which one's the divisor, which one's the dividend, I write them out, and then I can see dividends first, that's an S, so it's next, and then quotient's just way down the list, okay? So there's the order.